So then, it has come out recently that Sony are going to supposedly acquire the popular streaming anime service known as Crunchyroll. I saw a lot of people lamenting over this news, but instead of that depressing stuff, the first thing that came to my mind was, now what can Crunchyroll do with the injection of that sweet, sweet Skrilla? I mean, if you just acquired a new aspect of your business, you would want to make it as good as humanly possible, right? As such, I've come up with 6 ideas that I think Sony could do to Crunchyroll that would make the site dramatically better. So then, let's get right into it. I will keep the first one brief as I am not an expert in this field. However, I spoke to a friend of mine who is an expert in this field and he said that he completely agreed with me. That being the UX, that means user experience for you guys that don't know, of the website needs a complete overhaul. It literally looks like the site was made in 2012 and it only gets more dated as you go into various parts of it, such as the profiles or the messaging functions that don't even work anymore. My friend who was on the UX, which is basically web dev, course at my university literally laughed at how ugly and outdated the site looked when I asked him about it. Hey Sony, maybe you could hire him to make your website look like it belongs in the modern day and not a relic from years past. Now, my second and arguably biggest change I would make if I was Sony is the addition of lists. I think the social aspect of Crunchyroll is probably the most overlooked and underutilized part of it. You can ask almost any random anime fan you'll find on the streets and they will almost certainly have an anime list. Even more likely, on the spot they will probably even begin passionately talking about the scores they have given to certain shows and their top 10 lists. I don't know what it is about making a list of all the shows and manga you have seen that's so entertaining, but my god, it's really an experience that's fun to do. And everybody likes looking at the statistical evidence of just how much of a degenerate they are from how many days they have spent consuming anime. It's also just fun to look at your friends' lists and judge them for their shit taste, as well as flex on them for the fact that your opinion on fictional shows is superior to theirs due to having more days watched anime than they do. But also, and arguably most importantly, it's just a great conversation starter. The amount of conversations and banter between friends stemming from why they've given certain shows certain scores is uncountable, to be honest. And just even speaking from personal experience, I've legitimately spent at least 3 hours in a given day explaining and justifying why I've given certain shows like One Punch Man a score of 5 instead of a perfect score of 10 like most people. Now then, the gimmick just got real old for me real fast, okay? Please don't crucify me in the comments. However, for some reason, the site where I watch anime and the site where I list which anime I've seen are different. Why? I've always found this stupid. In fact, provably so. If you look at my profile on Crunchyroll, you can see that I manually used to list every anime I saw on it after I finished watching them. The only reason I stopped doing this is because I hit the max amount of characters you can have on a profile, thereby forcing me to use more conventional anime listing sites like MyAnimeList. But why not just have it all in the same place? Why should I have to go to a third-party site to list the shows that I have watched on your site? It makes no sense. Thus, I propose to Sony that Crunchyroll should add the ability to have anime and manga lists for each user. Just due to the inherent synergy of being on the same platform, I believe these lists can perform much better than their competitors. For example, I know some people, Brian, who like the idea of having a list and the benefits that come with it, but just due to inherent human laziness, they can't be bothered after having watched something to go to another site and add that show to their list or update their progress on that show. But the advantage of having it all on the same site is that they have all the data. You don't need to set anything up or maintain anything, it can just do it all for you. Imagine this, you've just watched a show, and from the moment you watch it, it automatically gets added to your list. With each episode you watch, your progress is updated seamlessly. When you get to the end of the show, you even get asked for a rating out of 10, which you can either give at that moment or at a later date. Either way, the show you just finished will automatically get set to completed on your list. Also, if you start a show and then go a certain amount of time without watching it, that show should automatically be changed to on hold status on your list. That means you're not watching that show at the current moment, but you plan to watch it at a later date. Then, if a substantial amount of time has passed and you still haven't watched it, then it should automatically be changed to dropped status in your list. Of course, you should also be able to manually change all these things in case you want to micromanage it more, but having it automated is the go-to, obviously. This whole process is so much smoother and more streamlined than a third-party site could ever hope to achieve, and it also opens up other avenues for further improvement. One of which is my third suggestion, that being recommendations. Crunchyroll for the most part does not recommend you shit, and the little of what it does recommend you is not personalized, therefore it can be extremely hit or miss at the best of times. This means in order to decide what anime you want to watch, you as the viewer are forced to go back to primitive methods, such as asking your friends for recommendations, or even something as barbaric as trying a random show that you know nothing about on a whim.
日本にやってくる年間800万人の U 空港で待ち伏せしていきなりカメラを向け
However, now that Crunchyroll would have the list functions, they will not only have data on what their viewers have seen, but also additional data such as ratings and speed of completion. From all this information, it should be very possible to write a good algorithm for personal show recommendations, meaning you should never be stumped on what you should be watching. Other streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime have already had algorithms for recommending their viewers shows for years, so it's really shocking to me that Crunchyroll are so far behind in this aspect. However, like I said before, in theory, they should be able to make a much better recommendation algorithm than these streaming services ever could, and that is because that they would have much more data to work with in order to give good recommendations for each user on their platform due to having the lists that I mentioned before. Now then, my fourth suggestion is one to help give synergies with the lists and recommendation aspects that I just recommended, and that being Crunchyroll adding an anime and manga database. Essentially, on their site, they should have a compiled list of as much anime and manga as humanly possible, and then you can look over the details of that anime and manga, such as who directed it, who the author is, what the voice actors of the series are, etc. I suggest this addition for multiple reasons, the first being the most obvious one, that being in fact that it helps the list features that I suggested earlier, as it's pointless to only be able to make an anime list for shows that are available on the platform. As we know, not every anime you would have seen will be available on Crunchyroll. So in that case, in order to have a complete list, you would then have to go and use a third-party site again, such as my anime list. Nobody wants to have an incomplete watch list, as it defeats the core purpose of it and is extremely unsatisfying. In order to avoid this problem, Crunchyroll should add the database. They may not be able to license every show in order to watch on their platform, but they can compile a list of them on their site. Another reason why I believe this would be a good addition to the site is because it will be beneficial in aiding users in finding things to watch. I want you to imagine something for me real quick. You're sat there, you've just finished watching an anime. For the sake of the argument, let's say that anime was Bakemonogatari. Then, below the video player, you see the name of the director who made it. Let's say his name is Mr. Monogatari. You can then click on his name, and it will link you to his profile in the database. There you can see some basic information about him, but more importantly, you can see all the shows that he has directed, with the ones that are on the site being highlighted. So now you're thinking to yourself, wow, I really enjoyed what he did with Bakemonogatari, and I see he also did, let's say, Clannad. Let me watch that and see if this is also a good show. By allowing the user to follow their favourite creators, you should further enable them to find more things in which they'll potentially enjoy watching. But also, and maybe even more importantly, it's more information to feed into the recommendation algorithm. If you've completed and liked 2 different shows done by Mr. Monogatari, then odds are you'll probably like a third. The same thing can be done for animation studios, mangakas, and other things of this nature. The more data you can give the recommendation algorithm, the better recommendations it's going to be able to make. And also, this just gives you more power as the user to find things that you'll like watching. Also, let's just get real here for a second. The average anime fan doesn't know shit about directing or other things of this nature, however they love to pretend they do. So this would be another reason why evolving the watching experience in this manner would be beneficial, as you'll give people more ammunition to lie out of their ass. Now then, my 5th suggestion is one that I'm surprised that, to my knowledge, no other streaming service has done yet, as to me it seems extremely obvious as a next step to implement, and that being watch parties. There are so many times where you want to watch anime or movies with your friends to enjoy a nice social experience of getting to see a story together that you all like. However, due to various reasons, you can't meet up in person to do so. This can be something as simple as you don't feel like traveling 20 or so minutes to your friend's house, or something on larger scale like you don't live in the same country as your friend, or COVID restrictions, as we all know in this modern day. However, this is 2020. We have the internet. This should not be a restriction. And if you look, people agree with me. I mean, just on their own, they're trying to varying degrees of success to get around this Stone Age-esque restriction, using shit quality Discord screen shares in a shoddy attempt to watch things together, or even using third-party sites who offer a similar service to also varying degrees of quality, some of which aren't even around anymore, and all of which I'm unsure if they're even legal. In the worst case scenario, you both have to load up the video separately and then manually sync up the start time of the video together, like some sort of primitive cavemen, and all the while, you're just praying that neither of you buffer or need to pause at any point, as if you do, the whole thing is just fucked. It really shouldn't be this hard. I propose that Crunchyroll should add the ability to watch anime with other people. I mean, if you both have a Crunchyroll account, then why not? You should simply be able to invite your friend or friends to watch with you. Crunchyroll then handles the syncing of everything automatically. As such, if you need to pause, skip forward, skip backwards, or anything of this nature, it will all just happen seamlessly for you, allowing you to have a nice, high-quality, painless social watching experience. And now for my 6th and final suggestion. Now this one is a bit more of a minor one, as I'm not sure if it's actually possible to do something about it or not, but in case it is possible, I feel like it's worth highlighting, and that being licensing prioritization. Think about this. On Crunchyroll, I can watch Bakemonogatari, the first part of the series of Monogatari, and then I can watch Nizumonogatari, the second part of the series. But I can't watch Nika Monogatari, the third part of the series. However, I can watch Monogatari second season, which is the fourth part of the series. Similarly, I can't watch Love Live School Idol Project's first season, but I can watch Love Live School Idol Project's second season and all the seasons that come after that. Why? This makes for such a broken watching experience. I can imagine for a decent amount of people this probably even just turns them off of watching the series altogether. I mean, think about it. My options are either to accept that I can't view the unavailable seasons and watch the ones that are available, making for an incoherent, confusing, incomplete watching experience, or I have to fucking pirate the show. In which case, why the fuck am I paying for the streaming service in the first place? Or, even worse, I have to go and fucking buy Blu-rays that are of the unavailable seasons in 2020. Blu-rays? Are you kidding me? I'm paying for this streaming service in the first place because I don't want to resort to such primitive caveman methods as fucking physical Blu-rays. I should not be forced into a position where I have to buy them. Surely, if you're able to acquire part 1 and 3 of a show, you should be able to acquire part 2 as well, right? I mean, as I said before, I don't know if they have a strong justifiable reason why this is the case, but if they don't, then they should heavily consider prioritizing making sure that every watching and reading experience they provide on their platform is complete, as otherwise you essentially force your user base to piracy, as that is the only reasonable option to get around this shit, at which point they may just consider stopping using your streaming service altogether. So that concludes my 6 suggestions as to how Sony can upgrade Crunchyroll. If they do even some of them, I firmly believe this will launch Crunchyroll far and away as the best anime streaming service on the market. Do you guys agree with my suggestions, or do you have any interesting ones of your own? Feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and like always, I'll make sure to read and highlight the ones that I find the most interesting. This was quite a fun video to make, to be honest, and I would really appreciate it if you guys would like it. But also, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this or on any of my other interests. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye bye.